welcome to Faithful Friday. Today we will be going over the book of First Kings. Last week we had our Bible trivia. I thank everyone who participated. We did have an overall winner who won, that answered the most questions. That is Micah Powell. So a shout out to Micah for winning the Bible trivia. Every 10 books of the Bible, we'll be doing Bible trivia, and you will be cashed out at the end money for each question that you answer. So we were having difficulties with the delay. So by the next 10 books, hopefully we'll have those quirks taken care of, or some other way for us to do it, a different mechanism or something to be able to do the Bible trivia with no issue, where everybody will be able to participate and put their question in. So if everybody is ready, let's get into the book of First Kings. Now, hopefully everybody is caught up. We didn't have Bible club last week, so that gave people a little time to be able to catch up. So hopefully this week you all are caught up and we're in the book of First Kings. So you know how I do. I'm going to start off with summarizing the book. So the book of First Kings begins with the final days of David, King David, and the transition of his power to his son Solomon. Now, despite initial conflict with his older brother Adonijah, Solomon is anointed king of Israel. After David's death, Solomon firmly established his rule, famously asking God for wisdom, which he receives along with great riches and honor. Solomon's reign is marked by immense prosperity, grand building projects, including the magnificent construction of the temple in Jerusalem, fulfilling his father David's desire, and international fame for his wisdom. However, as Solomon grows older, he is led astray by his many foreign wives, who turns his heart after other gods, provoking the Lord to anger. As a result, God declares that the kingdom will be torn from Solomon's son, though not during Solomon's lifetime, out of the respect for David. After Solomon's death, his son Rehoboam, I think I'm saying it right, became king. But his harsh policies caused the northern tribes to rebel, dividing the kingdom into two: Israel in the north under Jeroboam, and Judea in the south under Rehoboam. Wow, these names, okay? The rest of the book recounts the reigns of various kings of both kingdoms, highlighting their spiritual failures and political struggles. The prophet Elijah emerges as a central figure, confronting King Ahab and Queen Jezebel over Israel idolatry, calling down fire from heaven and performing miracles as a witness to God's power. The book closes with Elijah's continued prophetic ministry and God's ongoing judgment and mercy over the divided kingdoms. So we got a lot in First Kings. So we're starting off with the farewell to David and the introduction of his son Solomon to the throne. And automatically it's conflict. As usual. So let's get into David's final days, and we can start breaking it down from there. So in the final days of King David's life, and this is recorded in First King, David was old and weak, unable to keep warm even with coverings. His servants brought a young woman named Abishag, the Shumite, to attend to him and lie in his bosom for warmth, though he had no intimate relations with her. Now, the Bible made sure that this stuff was brought out, because one thing that I want you to understand is that David got around. He had a lot of kids by a lot of different women. one of the things that caused him to be disobedient to God's word was Bathsheba. He was coveting someone else's wife, and he committed adultery with her, had a child with her, and then he also became a backstabber because he plotted against her husband to move him out of the way when he couldn't fully cover up what he did and had a child with her. And then he brought him home to lie with her so it would seem like, oh, that child was his child. But when he couldn't do that because that man was being so faithful to the war and to the cause, David plotted to get him killed during war. So David went to a lot of extents to cover up what he had did with Bathsheba. So it shows that David had a lust problem. He loved women. He loved women. And here it makes a point to show how elderly and weak that he was, that he had one of the most beautiful women that they could find, they brought to care for him and be there, and still he was weak and wasn't getting up and trying to sleep with her and all of this. So it was pretty much like, oh, okay, we know it's something wrong with him, because he would have been up with this beautiful lady in the room. So later on you're going to see how this all links together. So I just wanted to make that a point and bring out at this part. So as David lied near death, his son Adonijah attempted to usurp the throne without his father's consent. So here we go again with another son challenging David's authority as king, or really just trying to take the kingship from him. So here is Adonijah with his mess. He knows that David is now weak, and now he's trying to take his father's throne. So he declared himself king and gathered chariots, horsemen, and supporters, including Joab and Abiathar the priest. However, Nathan the prophet and Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, intervened by reminding David of his promise that Solomon would succeed him. In response, David ordered that Solomon be anointed king by Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet. Now Solomon was declared king, and the people rejoiced with great celebration, causing Adonijah followers to scatter in fear. Because see, first they were following and listening to what Adonijah said, but when they saw that David ain't that sick, he's, have made somebody his successor. And like many people do, they'll back you until when you done stepped in your mess. And once you step in your mess, they're going to let you handle it all by yourself, and they're going to run on off. When they were geeking you up all alone, but now they'll run off. And that's just what they did at this time. They scattered in fear. So before his death, which is David gave Solomon final instructions, urging him to be strong, follow God's commandments, and rules with wisdom. Now, I made this kind of short, but if you read in the Bible, he really was giving him sound advice. Not only advice and different words and what God told him, but David had walked the walk of disobedience and what happened when he disobeyed God. So he was really trying to emphasize to Solomon, do everything that God is telling you to do. If you do what God is saying do, you will be in his will. When you obey God, you're in his will. You're going to be in the will that God had planned for you. But when you are disobedient, you're stepping outside of the will of God, and that's when different things can start to occur. So David really wanted to emphasize that and make sure that he equipped Solomon with what he needed to be successful as king. And that was to follow the direction of the Lord. So he advised Solomon to deal with certain men who had wronged him, including Joab and Shimei, while showing kindness to the sons of Barzillai, who had supported him during Absalom's rebellion. After giving these last words, David died and was buried in the city of David, having reigned 40 years, 7 in Hebron and 33 in Jerusalem. Solomon then ascended the throne, and his kingdom was firmly established. So we see here that Solomon now has taken the throne. And as with a lot of testimonies that can go forth, when God puts you in position, even when he's training you to get into position, you're going to face obstacles and different things. And especially when you get into position, due to what God is calling you to do. Everybody position and everything is always that when you dig down to the root of it, is to bring more people to Christ. And that's something that the enemy does not want. So it's going to be obstacles and different things that's put in place. So although you're in the will of God, that don't stop you from being tested and tried, and different things are put in your way as a stumbling block and things like that. You have to stay prayerful and stay before God and pretty much ask God for wisdom and discernment so you can understand and know what these things are that's coming up against you. A lot of times it's not the person, it's the person being used. And sometimes it's not really, you're taking things personal, but it's really just a distraction to keep you from doing what God is calling you to do in another area. So here we're about to see where Solomon faces his first conflict as being king. And he's facing this conflict against his own half-brother. So after King David's death, Solomon's conflict with his older brother Adonijah is detailed in 1 Kings 2nd chapter. Though Adonijah had already attempted to take the throne while David was still alive, this was in Kings chapter 1. Solomon initially spared his life when Adonijah humbled himself and sought mercy. So after he tried it the first time while David was still alive, Solomon spared him and, okay, you tried it, but I'm king. So fall in line, pretty much. However, after David died and Solomon was firmly established as king, Adonijah made a politically charged request. He asked Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, to speak to the king on his behalf and request Abishag, the Shulamite, the young woman who had cared for David in his final days, to be given to him as a wife. While the request may have seemed innocent, it was seen as a veiled attempt to claim legacy to the throne, since taking a former king's concubine was a symbolic act of asserting royal authority. When Bathsheba presented the request, Bathsheba went back to her son to tell him. She's thinking there's no harm in it because she didn't know. However, Solomon was very wise because out of everything, he asked God for wisdom when God told him that he would give him whatever he wanted. He didn't ask for riches. He didn't ask for any of those things, but he asked for wisdom so he would be able to guide and rule over God's people properly. And that moved to God. So not only did God give him that wisdom that he asked for, but God also gave him the desires of his heart, which were riches and all of those things. So Solomon was very smart. So immediately, Solomon recognized it is an act of rebellion and threat to his reign. So in response, he declared that Adonijah had spoken this word against his own life and ordered Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, to strike him down. Thus Solomon's conflict with Adonijah ended with Adonijah's execution for his continued ambition and subtle attempt to challenge Solomon's kingship. So, yes, that was his half brother. They shared the same father. But Solomon was trying to do things that was right and in order and right in the eyesight of God. Adonijah kept coming against what God had put in place. God told David who to anoint and who was going to reign as king after him, who was going to take the throne, who his heir was going to be, and who was going to build the tabernacle. David wanted to do that for the Lord, but the Lord said no, that his son would do that. So God spoke to David and told him all of these things. So with Adonijah just coming trying to do what he wanted to do, sometimes when an obstacle keep being a stumbling block in a person's way, and what this person is doing is ordained by God, sometimes God will move things out of the way. And sometimes the way that he move it is really not good. So that's what happened here. Adonijah lost his life due to his attempts to keep trying to overthrow the throne and take over. So one of the things that I wanted to pull out, because we reading back, we read about Samuel anointing David as king. Samuel was the son of Hannah. I'm starting to kind of get the names confused. I believe so, but put down in the comment if I got it wrong. But she dedicated her son to the Lord in the tabernacle, that he would live there his entire life. So it was that Samuel was one of God's prophets that, God held with esteem. And he was the one who anointed David. So it kind of stood out to me when David said that he wanted Zadok to anoint his son Solomon. So I wanted to just get some information on Zadok. Get some information on him, just to see the comparison between him and Samuel, pretty much. So who is Zadok? He is a significant priest figure in the book of 1 Kings. He was a faithful high priest who served under both King David and King Solomon, and played a crucial role in the transformation of the monarchy from David to Solomon. In 1 Kings chapter 1, when David was old and Adonijah tried to make himself king, Zadok remained loyal to David and did not support Adonijah's rebellion. Instead, at David's command, Zadok, along with Nathan the prophet and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, helped anoint Solomon as king. Zadok took a horn of oil out of the tabernacle and anointed Solomon at Gilgal, signaling God's blessing and David's official approval. This can be found in 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 38 through 39. And the word reads, "And Zadok the priest took an horn of oil out of the tabernacle and anointed Solomon. And they blew the trumpet, and all the people said, 'God save King Solomon.'" This can be found in 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 39. Later in chapters 2, verse 35, after Solomon removed Abiathar, the priest, for supporting Adonijah's rebellion, Solomon anointed Zadok as the high priest in his place. And the word of God says, "And the king put Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, in his room over the host. And Zadok the priest did the king put in the room of Abiathar." This fulfills the prophecy made during the time of Eli the priest in 1 Samuel chapter 2, 27 through 36, where God declared that the priesthood would pass to a faithful priest, which was Zadok. So we see here where Zadok is a faithful priest, which was made a high priest. So in short, Zadok was a loyal, righteous priest who supported Solomon's divine appointment and became high priest during Solomon's reign, symbolizing the establishment of legitimate God-approved authority. So let's get a little bit into Solomon's reign as king. Like what did Solomon do during this time as king? Let's kind of like do a comparison to see what he did versus what his dad David did. Under Solomon's reign in the book of 1 Kings, Israel experienced a time of unmatched peace, prosperity, and glory, especially in the early years. So he's not really doing no different than David. David did pretty much the same thing. He started off a good run. He was obeying God, listening to God out the gate. He was doing what God called him to do, and he was seeing the success. He was being able to reign in peace and have the blessings of God upon his life. Solomon began his rule by seeking God, and the Lord appeared to him in a dream at Gibeon, offering to grant him anything he desired. Solomon humbly asked for wisdom to govern the people, and God granted him not only great wisdom, but also riches and honor. His wisdom became renowned throughout the world, demonstrated famously when he judged between two women claiming to be the mother of the same child. Now, I don't know if I speak to this later on, but I may speak to it now. It was two women, and one woman's son died, and she switched the baby with another lady. And they came to Solomon. The lady came and said the lady took her baby and gave her dead baby, and she wanted her live son back. And then the lady gonna use that "it's your word against mine" type stuff, and she know this is my son and the dead one is yours, when she know that she switched the children. And what Solomon did, this reminds me of when I was in court, in probate court. The judge would do this for you to basically tell on your own self. It's like techniques that is used for people to tell on themselves. And I didn't even really have to fight in the probate court. I mean, he was doing that, and the lies were being exposed. And that's what this particular passage in the Bible reminded me of. So what Solomon said, since you all don't know who the mother is, we'll just take the kid and split them down the middle and give you half and give you half. Now we know this is not a Twix. This is not a Kit Kat. This is a child. If you cut him down the middle, he's going to die. So the lady who had been lying anyway, she's still trying to stand her ground. But the lady, when he said cut him in half, the lady who was the real mother was like, you know what? She can go ahead and have him, because I'd rather my son live than for him to get killed. So go ahead and let her have him. He my son, but let her have him, if that'll spare his life. The other lady, because she mad because she was exposed, that the lady even came to try to call her out, she said, neither one of us, if I can't have him, neither one of us can have him. Split him down the middle. So she pretty much told on herself, because I don't know about nobody else, but I would lay down my life for my children. If it came down to that, I would. And I believe any mother would. It's something about you carried that child is yours, that unconditional love that you have for your child. So for her to say, go ahead and split him down the middle, that can't be your child. So that's how Solomon knew, and Solomon ordered for the child to be given to the lady who did not speak that blasphemy, and really the child went back to his original mother. So this was the wisdom and things that God gave to Solomon to be able to discern and be able to rule and judge the issues with the people, have the wisdom and things that he needed to have to govern the people. So after this, I mean, it was hands down. They were, listening to what Solomon said. They recognized the wisdom that he had from God. So Solomon established a well-ordered kingdom with peace on all sides and a population that prospered. One of his greatest achievements was the building of the temple in Jerusalem. I'm just trying to keep check with the time, you guys. Fulfilling his father David's desire. With the help of King Hiram of Tyre, Solomon built the temple over 7 years and dedicated it with great sacrifice and prayer. God's presence filled the temple, affirming his approval. Solomon also built grand palaces, fortified cities, and expanded Israel's influence through trade and alliances, amassing great wealth. His fame reached distant lands, and the Queen of Sheba visited to witness his wisdom and riches firsthand. However, in his later years, Solomon's many foreign wives turned his heart towards idolatry. He built altars and pagan gods and did evil in the sight of the Lord. As a result, God pronounced judgment. The kingdom will be torn from his son after Solomon's death, though not entirely for the sake of David. God still honoring the words and the covenant that he gave to David. Enemies like Hadad, Rezon, and Jeroboam rose up during this time, foreshadowing the division of the kingdom. Solomon's reign began with God's favor and ended in decline due to disobedience. Now, that's why in the beginning I wanted to bring out how David loved women. He had a lustful spirit and he loved women. And it was passed on down through generation to his son. I don't know if it was with all son, but for sure, Solomon. Because we will find out later on down the line, right in this next one, when we get to talk about his disobedience, how many wives and side chicks Solomon had. So, I'm just this shows how things can be passed down. Now, David fell due to his lust and disobedience and coveting someone else's wife and then committed adultery and all of those things. David got back in right standing with God before he passed and still kept his legacy in place. However, he opened the door to that. And sometime, I feel, although you get back in right standing, you have to be prayerful. Not only telling your child the obstacles that you encountered and for them to look for those stumbling blocks when they're taking that same walk, but it's important for you to pray over your children. Bind up those spirits. Cast them to the pits of hell. Turn down your plate and fast for your kids. Break those generational curses and those different things. Because to me, it seemed as if those spirits sat around and waited until I can jump right on into your son when he get in the kingship and make him fall. He did the same identical thing. And I mean, God took him even higher. He took him higher in him than he did David. He gave him the wisdom that, I mean, I just read it, the stuff that he was doing. And I mean, then he built the temple, the fortified cities, all of these different things, the trade alliances, all that. He knew how to talk. He was a businessman. All of this stuff that he was doing, he had it running like a well-oiled machine. But at some point, the lust and love for women was his downfall, the same as his father. And I just was thinking about that. It's important. This story and the comparison between David and his son Solomon can be used for us to see that we need to be prayerful over our children. Because although, yeah, we stumbled and we could have failed, or we could have dodged the obstacle that was in our way, whatever it is, that obstacle is still waiting. It's still waiting for your kids, your kids' kids. So instead of laying up sleep all night long, or sitting up watching TV or eating or whatever, set aside time to pray and break those things. Sometimes you don't have to just fast with your church. Sometimes you're going to be called to fast, or you need to fast on your own to break those things that you may not even see. Break that off of your family, your kids. It may not be there right now, but it'll be waiting when they're older. You could be dead and gone, and that's when they'll encounter it. But you already got prayers laid up in heaven for what'll come in their journey. So I just thought that this was very important to bring out, is that their lives were similar. They went through the same thing. And David told him to obey God and listen to God. And if he would have listened to what David said, but sometimes it takes more than you just telling your kids. And I know today it definitely takes more than you just praying for your children. I mean, just telling your children right from wrong and telling them no, not to do that, obey and this and that and blah, 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 blah. You have to be a doer of what you're saying to them. And then you also have to come up out of your comfort zone and have that relationship with God in that prayer life to be able to tap into prayer. Go before the throne of God and lay your kids before God and speak those things. So, that really stood out to me, because I'm like, wow, he did the same exact thing. And I mean, God took him even higher in him, and then he still disobeyed. He still disobeyed. All that he was doing, he could have had really whatever woman that he wanted, but he just wanted all kinds. The ones God said not get, to get, everything. He wanted all kinds. It didn't matter. So let's get into what Solomon's disobedience was. So Solomon's disobedience, as recorded in 1 Kings chapter 11, stemmed from his decision to love many strange women or foreign wives from nations that the Lord had specifically commanded the Israelites not to marry. These women include Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Edonians, and Hittites. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And in his old age, they turned his heart away from the Lord. Instead of remaining faithful to God of Israel, Solomon built high places and altars for pagan gods such as Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Shemash, the god of the Moabites, and Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites. He even offered sacrifices and allowed his wives to worship and burn incense to their gods. Now, you know these people had to pull him far away. You built a tabernacle, all these different things you did under the leadership of God. So you know God was just doing so many miraculous things in his life that he knew that it was a God. He didn't ask for riches and all of these, but God still gave them to him anyway, and gave him what he asked for, which was the wisdom. You had wisdom and you still stumbled and fell. All because you teetered on that line of disobedience. God said, don't talk to these women. I'm sure Solomon could have had whatever woman he wanted. He had the riches. He was the smartest. I mean, come on, he had stuff going for him. So he could have got anybody, but because of the lust of women and you just wanted a variety of women. That's the thing. You just wanted all kinds. You went against what God told you to do. So once you cracked that door, like you said, like the what people say. You give them an inch, they gonna take what? A mile. And that's what happened. He just cracked it to be disobedient, taking wives and stuff from different places, and they took a mile. Instead of you thinking that you gonna have them obeying and listening to you, you then in turn start listening to them. I looked at this because our pastor preached a message and she used a parable of an individual standing on a table and you trying to pull the person up with you on the table. It's very hard because all that weight of that person, and you don't have anything to brace yourself. You're standing there and you can try to not bend with your back and use your knees and all of that to try to pull so you don't throw out your back. But it's still very difficult. And it's easy for you to stumble and be pulled off the table with you trying to pull a person up. And she gave that parable to show when God have moved you to a certain level and you're trying to reach and pull somebody up there with you that you're not equally yoked with already, and you're now trying to pull them up there with you, it's easier for you to fall back down there with them than for you to pull them up. And in this case, I remember that parable that she gave during that particular sermon because this is the exact thing that happened with Solomon. Solomon then took on all these wives and concubines, and he's the king, and he's so successful as the king, and blah, 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 and this and that. But really, you listen to them. You were a follower to them. You have them to lead you astray to you're now worshiping their gods, and you're letting them burn incense and they're worshiping and doing different stuff to their own God, and you done lost sight of yours. All because you fed the lust of your flesh. You wanted different women. And this is what it got you. So really, I look at this as how we can look at relationships in our own lives. When God is telling us to leave a person alone and we don't leave them alone. We're disobeying what God has told us to do, and we get out of the will of God. And out of the will of God, you can be attacked and all type of things. And really, God loves us. And he gives grace and mercy, but we're not supposed to tempt him either. But he really don't have to. And it's like playing Russian roulette. You don't know if he's going to come to your rescue or not. This could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that's how you have to look at it. So in all things, try to be obedient to God and stay within his will. Because when you disobey God, you have to suffer the consequences. And in this case, Solomon is going to do so, because the kingship is going to be stripped from his son. And see, a lot of times your disobedience may not come back on you due to the covenant and different things that God made with your mother, your grandmother, and all of these things. And you thinking it's something that you've done, that you're favored by God. And sometimes that's not the case. God honors what he say. God is a man of his word. So if he said something to your mother or your grandmother, great grandparent and stuff, God honors that. It's not that you deserving of it, but God will honor it. And that's what God did here. He still honored David. So he didn't fully strip it, but he did enough, because something had to be done about Solomon's disobedience. So this idolatry was a direct violation of God's covenant and commandments. The Lord became angry with Solomon, especially because he had appeared to Solomon twice and had clearly commanded him not to go after other gods. So he didn't even warn him 2 times. He didn't just come against him right off the bat. He came to him, giving him grace. Solomon didn't listen. As a result, God declared that he would rend the kingdom from Solomon's son, though not during Solomon's lifetime, for David's sake. Didn't you hear me say, for some time, the prayers of and the covenants he's made with your parents and different things like that? God promised to leave one tribe for Solomon's son to rule for the sake of Jerusalem and his son and his covenant with David. Solomon's disobedience through idolatry and alliances with pagan nations ultimately led to the division of the United Kingdom of Israel after his death. So, like I said, it's always consequences for your actions of disobedience. Due to what Solomon did, he made a division within the kingdom of Israel after his death. All because he had a lust spirit for women. That's what it boils down to. So out of this, just what I've read, the 2 things that you can learn is that you can learn to be able to pray over your kids and break those generational curses, things, and you know the way that the enemy have came against you, the things that God has tested you with that was hard for you to let go of, and a lot of different things. Pray over your kids to break those things. That when they grow up, those same they're going to have stumbling blocks. But pray that those be removed. That they don't face those things in their lives. Send those prayers up. God hears prayers and he answers them. So that was the first thing. The second thing is to stay in the will of God. We can relate to it. We don't have kings and all of that stuff today. We have a president and all of that stuff. So I'm not speaking to that portion and part of it. But what I'm saying is he took on wives and things that God said not to deal with. And we know all day, every day, God is telling us, leave this person alone. Don't talk to this person. Don't marry this person. Leave them alone. Get away from them. Stop fornicating with this one. Such as, I mean, we can go on and on. That's all day, every day. That's just about the majority of people struggle in churches, is that. So this right here is just telling you the repercussions of being with the wrong individual, or thinking that you can be unequally yoked with a person and that you gonna pull them your way. It don't always work that way. If God don't step in and pull them your way, they're not gonna come your way. That's it in a nutshell. And I know that people don't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. But choose this day whom you're going to serve. And that's it. You're going to follow the Lord or you going to continue to sit here trying to pull this person and you fall down off the table? As the parable that my pastor stated. So those are the two lessons that I learned. Wait on God for who God wants you to be with, or choose out of the people that God say it's okay to choose from. Don't go over there with the Shuamites and the Idiomites and all of these other people. Today they not called that, but I'm just giving you what they said in the Bible. But choose better, choose wisely, because at the end of the day, the person that you choose can make or break your relationship with God. So those are the things that I took, and I mean, those are great things to have in your toolbox. So just from those things, if you don't read nothing else or understand anything else in the book of Kings, let those things be something that stand out to you that you can use as a blueprint and also throw in your toolbox to use when needed. You know, when you're in prayer, remember to cover and pray for your children and send those prayers up for them. And for two, when you looking to find a husband, looking to find a wife, and all of those different things, make sure that you are seeking God for guidance, because God is not going to send you someone that's going to pull you away from him. They may not be perfect. Nobody is perfect. We all was born in sin and shaped in iniquity, but God is able to provide you with someone that's going to be a complement and to also help you with the purpose that God has placed in you. That will happen. So I just wanted to bring those things out. It's very important. So let's get into Rehoboam's kingship. I don't know if I'm saying that name right, so if I'm not, please forgive me. So Rehoboam kingship, as described in 1 Kings chapter 12 through 14, marked the beginning of the divided kingdom of Israel. Rehoboam was the son of Solomon and succeeded him as king. When he went to Shishim for the coronation, the people of Israel, led by Jeroboam, a former servant of Solomon, whom God had chosen to lead the 10 northern tribes, approached Rehoboam with a request. They asked him to lighten the heavy yoke of labor and taxation that Solomon had placed upon him. Now they're going to Rehoboam. This is Solomon's son. This is Solomon's son who's took kingship. And he's asking him, the people are coming, to ask that he lighten the heavy yoke of labor and taxation that Solomon had placed upon them. Rehoboam first consulted the older men who had served his father, which was wise. And they advised him to speak kindly and reduce the burden. However, he rejected their counsel and turned to the advice of the younger men he had grown up with, who encouraged him to speak harshly and increase the people's burden, saying, "My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins, and my father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions." This can be found in 1 Kings chapter 12, verses 10 through 11. So, this is the next part that I wanted to bring out. People will tend, and usually people that's young, sometimes you're so immature or you don't have the wisdom to know to go to somebody older. You would think, oh, they old, they don't know nothing, which is stupid. It's just the opposite. Which are people, just because they old don't mean that they have obtained wisdom. A lot of people they don't learn from their mistakes. So you could be an old fool, truly. So just because you old don't mean that you know anything. But in most cases, a lot of people that have lived long, have learned, they've made enough mistakes and they've learned from them and they've gained wisdom from those mistakes. And if you go to them for wise counsel, they can give you sound doctrine. You know, things that can help you along your journey. Not only this, these people reigned with his father. And if your father had the wisdom that God gave him, and these people sat at his foot, they served him and worked with him. Don't you know they knew some of the things and how your father would have ruled and what to do? You now just taking this new seat. You can't come in a dictatorship type of way. I'm not saying you got to be flimsy back and get the people what they want either, but you got to come in like, come on now, just use wisdom. My mom would say you could get a lot of bees with honey, but you won't get not one with salt. So come in the door being a little sweet. You don't, I mean, come on, you don't have to be jellyback, but come on, don't come in you saying you gonna be like a scorpion and all of this other stuff. Like, come on, what is you coming in like that for? So off the bat, I feel that the sun is coming in on the left foot instead of the right. And we all know when you are building something, the foundation is everything. If that foundation is shaky, everything is off track. You might as well not even build it because it won't last. Your foundation have to be strong, steady, steadfast. And he's starting off on the wrong foot. You're getting counsel from the wrong set of people. Kids tend to do this. You will go to your friend and you asking them for advice. You and them are at the same, we all running a race. In the Bible, they use the parable. The race is not given to the swift or to the strong, but the one that can endureth to the end. So it's a race, but it's some people walking. It's some people that's lightly jogging. It's some people that then took off at high speed. But it's still a race that we're in. And if I want to find out something about this journey, why would I ask somebody that's right here in the journey with me? They don't know what's up there. So what would I ask them for? When this person is about 2 or 3 miles up. So they can be like, once you get to the green patch, it's going to be an obstacle to the left-hand side. Move over to the right to evade that and go such and such. They can be pretty much like a navigating system. Almost. Because they've been through that. Now, some people ain't going to remember. Those are the people that didn't learn from tripping over that obstacle. See, people that done tripped over an obstacle and then they sit down and they learn. So next time I'm not going to hit my foot on them, that same kind of obstacle. Let me be faced with a different type of obstacle, but I'm not going to keep cracking my toe on the same obstacle. Them the people that gain wisdom. The other people that forget about the obstacle, they ain't learned nothing. So they'll be about to face the same type of obstacle soon in their race. But the thing is, you don't want to get advice from a person that's right there. They seeing the same thing you're seeing. So they can't tell you anything. And this is what he did out the gate. You're listening to somebody that's on the same level as you. Instead of listening to people that had wisdom. So off the bat, we can see that his reign is not going to be for long. Or the successes that David and Solomon had, he's not going to have them.
So this ignorant response caused the 10 northern tribes to rebel, proclaiming, "What portion have we in David?" and making Jeroboam their king. So it's Rehoboam, which is the son of Solomon, and Jeroboam, which was one of the people that uh, served and worked under the leadership of Solomon, I believe. So only the tribes of Judah and Benjamin remained loyal to Rehoboam. Though Rehoboam gathered an army of 180,000 men to fight and reclaim the kingdom, God sent the prophet Shemaiah to stop him, declaring that the division was from him. And Rehoboam obeyed the word of the Lord and returned home. So he had got up enough men and he was going to go and fight, but God said, "I did it." You sitting up, you did it in the beginning. This is your consequence. So don't try to go doing anything now. I caused this to happen. And he also caused it to happen to fulfill what he stated to Solomon, that eventually it was going to be stripped from his sons, and that he only let them have a little bit of something on the strength of David. So this was all God's doing. So Rehoboam, at this point, he did listen to the Lord and returned home. He reigned over Judea from Jerusalem and initially fortified cities and strengthened his... He reigned over Judea from Jerusalem and initially fortified cities and strengthened his defenses. However, he and the people of Judea forsook the law of the Lord. As a result, in the 5th year of his reign, Shishak, king of Egypt, invaded Jerusalem and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the king's house, including Solomon's golden shields. Rehoboam replaced them with brass ones, but the humiliation remained. Though he humbled himself briefly, his reign marked by spiritual decline and idolatry. Rehoboam reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, but the Bible notes he did evil because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. This was in 2 Chronicles 12 and 14. His kingship began with foolish counsel, resulting in the division of Israel, and was characterized by disobedience and decline. So he did try to, though he humbled himself briefly, you hear it said briefly, his reign was marked by spiritual decline and idolatry. He loved the women. He loved the women, and his reign was a disgrace. You see, with all the other kings, they reigned for years. Even Saul, with what he was doing, running around chasing after David and all of that. He reigned for a nice period of time. He couldn't get it together. And ultimately, he made a split in the people. The consequences was heavy, that it caused that split in the people. So the reign of other kings after Solomon, and pretty much Rehoboam, his son. The remainder of the book of 1 Kings recount the reign of various kings in both the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judea, emphasizing their spiritual failures and political struggles. After Solomon's death and the division of the kingdom, Jeroboam ruled the northern tribes and immediately led Israel into sin by creating 2 golden calves and establishing a false system of worship to prevent the people from going to Jerusalem. This act became a lasting sin in Israel, and nearly every northern king after him followed in his idolatrous footsteps. The northern kingdom saw a series of violent and short-lived dynasties, including the reign of Nadab, Baasha, Eli, Zimri, and Omri. The most infamous of these kings was Ahab, who married Jezebel and introduced widespread worship of Baal, provoking God's anger more than all the kings before him. During this time, God raised up the prophet Elijah. So here again, God is always showing mercy and trying to redeem his people. Turn the people's hearts back toward him. During this time, it's just idolatry everywhere. People have just flat out forgot about God altogether. It's generation after generation, and as each generation is coming along, they're forgetting about God. And that's why God was so angry at Ahab and Jezebel, because they really was doing a widespread worship of getting everybody to worship Baal. So during this time, God raised up another prophet, a person that was going to represent him no matter what. And this prophet was Prophet Elijah, who boldly confronted Ahab and Jezebel, performed miracles, and called the nation back to repentance, most notably during the dramatic contest on Mount Carmel. So meanwhile, the southern kingdom of Judea, led by the house of David, also experienced spiritual decline. Because see, now they're split now. So though it had moments of faithfulness, which they was trying to keep God alive, Rehoboam, Solomon's son, began his reign with harsh leadership that split the kingdom. His son Abijah continued in sin. So once his son took over, he just continued on in the same idolatry ways. But Asa, his grandson, initiated religion reforms and sought the Lord during the times of war. So the grandson started trying to infiltrate the Lord back into things. Though he faltered in later years, he ended up falling. Judea remained the temple and the priesthood in Jerusalem, but many of its kings allowed the high places to remain, showing only partial obedience to God's commands. Throughout the book, God sent prophets to warn both kingdoms, called them to turn from idolatry and return to covenant. Yet the repeated phase, he did evil in the sight of the Lord, became a tragic pattern, especially in the northern kingdom. The narrative highlights how spiritual unfaithfulness led to political instability, foreign threats, and divine judgment. First King ends with the death of Ahab and prophecies of continued trouble, setting the stage for the event that would unfold in 2 Kings. Overall, the book presents a solemn reminder that a nation's prosperity and peace is tied to its faithfulness to God. So it's terrible now. It's just terrible during this time. It's idolatry everywhere. People is losing sight of God. They don't know who God is. It's just far and few in between. The few people that's rising up, eventually they fall into it as well. So now we see where God raised up a person. God always raised up a remnant in the midst of a bunch of mess. God will still give us an opportunity to come back to him. And that's God's love for us. And in this case, he brought Elijah on the scene. So the prophet Elijah first steps onto the scene in 1 Kings chapter 17 during the reign of King Ahab, a time when Israel had fallen deeply into idolatry under the influence of Ahab and his wife Jezebel, who promoted the worship of Baal. Elijah, identified as Elijah the Tishbite from Gilead, boldly appeared before King Ahab and declared a judgment from the Lord. There would be no dew nor rain in the land for years, except by Elijah's word. This drought was a direct challenge to Baal, the supported storm and fertility god, and a powerful demonstration of the true God's authority. So Elijah steps on the scene and he boldly stepped to the king and let him know, like, it won't be no rain and none of that until I say, because the God that I serve is the true and living God. You serving a dead God, but I'm serving a God that's living. So God is coming to challenge the people at this point, and he's going to show them. Now, because of their disobedience to bowing down and praising this statue Baal, with it not being any rain, that means it ain't gonna be no crops growing and none of that, because they need to be watered to grow. So now it's no food. You about to have a famine, and it ain't gonna change until I say. So this is what has been said. So now what's gonna happen is when the people get up, start getting in an uproar, and the king start looking crazy, they gonna be looking for Elijah's head. So after proclaiming this word, God instructed Elijah to hide by the brook Cherith, where he was miraculously sustained by ravens that brought him bread and flesh every morning and evening, and he drank from the brook. So God provided for him. When the brook eventually dried up due to the drought that God sent Elijah to Zephath, I think I'm saying it right, a town outside Israel where a widow and her son were preparing for death due to famine. Elijah asked her for food and thought she had only a handful of meal and a little oil. She obeyed his word from the Lord. As a result, her barrel of meal and cruse of oil never ran out throughout the drought. Okay. This was the next story. Now, I've always heard this story throughout my tenure of church going, but I never knew what book it was in, and I never knew the story that's encompassed this particular passage. This story is one of my favorite stories or passages in the Bible, because it speaks about not only obedience but faith. And I always look at this particular story with giving offerings and giving God what's due to him, the 10%. Sometimes people will say, you don't have to get 10% of your money. You don't give 10% of your money. You can give of your time, and God wants you to give of your time. God wants you to give of your money and all of that. God gave up his life that we may live and also have a life more abundantly. And this story speaks so much because that lady had her last meal, and I know what it is in fasting and to be hungry. And this is all I got. Like, I don't think I'm going to share with my son, but I don't have none for you. And sometimes I put myself, what would I have did? That lady had to be a woman of God and to hear from God for her to take not only from hers, but now your son got to get a smaller portion as well. And like I said, mothers, you have that mother with you. You will lay down your life for your child. So for you to take a smaller amount and for your kid to take a smaller amount, you had to be a woman of God and heard from God. Now, she wasn't exempt from going through. And I believe that it was just a test. Because when you are a child of God, it could be a famine or whatever going on all around you, and God will keep you from being touched or bothered by the situation. But sometimes God will test you to see what you're going to do. God will test you to see if you have the faith enough to believe that, God, you can rise me above what I'm in. I got faith in you. So I'm going to give you what I have. I'm going to give you this. I don't know how I'm going to make it, but I know that you will make a way. out of no way. And that's what this lady did. And because of what she did, the Bible say the barrel of meal and cruse of oil never ran out throughout the drought. This woman had food after that. God provided for this woman, although the drought was going on, and it still was going on because of her obedience, and she passed the test that God gave her. That lady didn't go without. I woke up out of my sleep for prayer at 3 o'clock in the morning at one point, and I began to pray, and the devil was on me to like, don't give that money, don't give that money. Your hot water tank that went out, and this and that, and all of these things have happened. You don't have the money. You can't give that. My tithes was $600. And it was like, don't give it. Don't give it. You don't got it. You don't got it. You really need that. I'm thinking to myself, God then bless me with the money to even have the money to pay these different things. And then God was placing on people's heart to do things for me. Hold 1 second, please. Please give me 1 minute. Hello? Okay, I'm in the middle of doing my Faithful Friday. Can I call you right back, or is it something that you needed? Okay. Lord. Okay, sorry about that, you guys, but I was just saying, like, you know, I was going back and forth. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to even allow the enemy to keep trying to come against my mind and try to tell me what to do and not to do with this money. I was up, and then it was about, I don't know, probably like 3 something. I usually get up about 3, but this particular morning I got up around 2 something in the morning. And I had been praying and things, and I sent my tithes over. We can send tithes through Cash App, Zelle, and all of that. And I Cash App the money with no problem right over. So you can just stop trying to send stuff. It's already gone. So I don't even have it no more. So you can go on to try to come to my mind with something else. Because with that, you can't even come no more. I don't even have it. The enemy will try to keep you from the things of God by doing that. When you're tested, he can't keep you from getting what God has for you, but you can stop what God has for you. If you listen to the thoughts and you started backpedaling, if she would have, oh, well, I don't have enough. And you know, some people, they'll still think, oh, I'm doing a favor by telling you, you can go up the street, such and such got a plate for you. You can go down there. They got a little bit of food down there. Now, I can't give it to you. You missed out on your blessing. That was a test that God was testing you. Sometimes God said we can live more abundantly. And I know God's word don't fall to the ground. So why am I not living abundantly? It got to be something I'm doing. So then you search your life to see, where am I being disobedient to God? Because it got to be me. It ain't God. He died for this for us. So what pleasure would he get out of keeping us from having an abundant life? We're keeping ourselves from that. Because when God comes to test us, before we get the blessing, we're going to always be tested. And when we're tested, we don't pass it. Which means you got to take it again. That's how it is in school. You have to take it again. And it'll come at a different time, and we have to take it again. But here it shows that this lady obeyed God. And it says that her oil and things never ran dry. And this always remind me of giving of tithes and offering. Not only do I give of my time, offering my time to my church home and different things like that, but I'm still going to give of my money. See, back then I don't have a calf or an oxen and all of these different things to offer. We have money today. We don't have those things. But back then, those things determined wealth and things that represented their money back then. So for them to lay them on the altar and burn them, was their sacrifice to God. Our sacrifice to God, although God is our ultimate sacrifice, we still give offerings, and our offering is by giving him money. That's what we got to live. But to show God, I have faith in you and I know that you're going to provide and take care of me, I'm going to give you my first fruits of my labor. I got paid, and I'm going to give this to you off the top. Sometimes I don't even use a penny of my money. I don't wait to go to church. I will Cash App and send my money right then and there. Soon as it hit my account, I'm going to send it. Because I want to give God my first fruits. God honors those things. And people say, oh, well, you're not rich. You not driving Bentleys and you don't have this and all of that. All of those things don't define rich. Those things don't always define a person being rich. And I can truly say I've never lacked or went without. Ever. God has always provided. He's made a way out of no way every time. So his word won't fall to him void. So this is just another nugget in the book of 1 Kings that stood out to me that, I take that, I look at that passage every time when the enemy is trying to come against me with paying my tithes and offering. So later with Elijah steps, when Elijah steps on the scene, let me see. So Elijah asks her for food. She gives him the food and all of that. So later when the widow's son died, Elijah cried out to God, and the Lord heard his prayer and raised the boy back to life, marking the first recorded resurrection in the Bible. Elijah's arrival introduced him to a man of deep faith, boldness, and miraculous power, sent to confront a corrupt kingdom and call the people back to the worship of the one true God. Now, this is another point that I wanted to bring out. This lady didn't know soon that her son would be passing away. Because she was obedient to God, God came at a point when she really needed him, and he did something miraculous. He raised her son from the dead. Now, I'm not saying she earned that because she gave God the money, but being obedient, her giving this man that food during that time, it wasn't just to save her son. You got to look at the bigger picture. And this was one of the things that I wanted to bring out about with my church. God placed it on my heart. I was watching the 2819 church, and I'm seeing all of their merch and all of that stuff. And God spoke to me and said, the same thing that church is doing and everything is the same thing that your church could do. Don't doubt that. You all can have the same merch, have the same unity that you see within these people and all of that stuff. I see a bigger picture. It's people complaining about the color of the shirt, and they don't want white. They want a color, and these people, and they don't like who's overdoing it, and all the rest, all of that stuff doesn't matter. It's about what God say and what God is doing. And you can only tap into what God is doing by meeting him in prayer and lining up with the vision that God has placed in that leader of the church. So here, this woman gave food to a man that God put on the scene to bring a nation back to him. So this man needed to eat. He needed to be strong. It was a famine going on. He needed to eat. A brook had dried up and all of this stuff. So God sent him that way. So this lady helped in continuing this man's charge to bring a nation back to God. So it was bigger than just her. But in the midst of that, God still blessed her. He saw down the line that this lady's son was going to die. So God did the miraculous and brought this lady's son back. But sometimes we have to elevate our mind and not just looking at things that we want. Flesh. We be in the flesh at the time. We have to be in the spirit and understand what God is trying to do. It's bigger than that. With these t-shirts, it's going to bring revenue in for the church. Not only that, but by us wearing those shirts, it's signifying unity, whether we're there or not. It's just like we're speaking those things that are not as though they were. So by wearing those shirts, it's signifying unity. And one day we will have that unity. It's also a conversational piece when we're witnessing to people. To bring people not only into our church, but into the body of Christ, period. So that's what I'm saying. It's not just about that t-shirt. It's much larger than that. It's on a larger scale, and that's what God gave to me. And and when I saw this portion of it where God brought this woman's son back, I thought about that. You know, what she did was on a bigger scale. Yes, God blessed her and brought her son back, and you would think like, oh, God did that because she gave the man. But even that, it was just on a bigger scale. And that's what I'm saying. It's just teaching me that you have to get out of your flesh and things that you want and elevate your mind to a level to know what it is that God is doing during that time and what it is that God wants. And fall in line with the leader of whatever church you're in and run with that. It said, write the vision and make it plain. And we, as being the congregation, the people in the church, supposed to take that vision and run with it and make that vision come to pass. So that's what I'm trying to do at my church home. And like I said, this just shedded light on that particular situation with me. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So just concluding, because I have to run and go get my son from daycare. The book of 1 Kings concludes with the continued spiritual decline of both the northern and southern kingdoms. Despite God's repeated warnings through his prophets, the final chapters focus on the reign of King Ahab of Israel, who under the influence of his wife Jezebel led the nation deeper into idolatry and injustice. Though Ahab experienced brief moments of humility, he ultimately died in battle, fulfilling the prophetic word of Elijah that his blood would be licked up by dogs. His son Ahaziah succeeded him, but also did evil in the sight of the Lord, walking in the ways of his father and mother and serving Baal. Meanwhile, Jehoshaphat, king of Judea, ruled more righteously and attempted to maintain peace, even forming an alliance with Ahab. However, the overall spiritual condition of the nation remained compromised. The book closes with growing instability, moral decay, and divine judgment looming over both kingdoms. This set the stage for the opening of 2 Kings, where the prophetic ministry intensifies, Elijah's final acts unfold, and his mantle is passed to Elisha. As God continues to work through his prophets amidst the rising and falling of kings. The story continues with deeper consequences, greater miracles, and eventual downfall of both kingdoms due to their persistent rebellion. Okay, So we're through First Kings. So we kind of got an insight of what's going to go down in Second Kings for next week. Great book. I couldn't speak more about it. I would kind of go on a little bit and ad lib, but I got to get out of here to go get my son. But thank you for joining me today. Please like, share, and subscribe my channel to get this out to everyone who needs to read the Word of God and just need a little help. I know when you pick up the Bible, you will fall asleep. It's like a sedative, truly. But I don't know. God did something in me to make me, love reading and breaking down his word now and just dissecting the word. And every week, he never fails. It applies to my life some kind of way every week, every book that I read. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you all next week, next Friday with Second Kings. Have a blessed one.